Well, let's talk more about this then. Bring in researcher and policy analyst Sara Black, joining us by Skype this afternoon. Sara, a very good afternoon to you. So we're just under 4 hours from that address by President Cyril Ramaphosa tonight. How much attention do you want him to pay to the schools question?
Good afternoon to you and to your listeners. I think that it's a problem that is affecting almost every household around the country right now, and so it is a pressing matter as the polarity in the argument reaches quite important tension points, with the unions calling for schools to close, with parents wondering what is the best thing to choose for their child, with teachers increasingly vocal about the problems they're seeing on the ground. It's something the president, I think, needs to address very urgently.
And where is the balance, do you think, Sara, between balancing the calls from parents and unions alike for the protection of children and educators, and what the Education Department has said is, apart from the work of teaching itself, are the socio-economic elements that come with the education dynamic in South Africa?
So we're really being confronted very, very bluntly here with the fact that we have relied on schools as institutions to really heavily compensate for other social forms of failure. My own research in the sociology of education and my experience as well as a teacher in a township school is that often schools are the frontline defense between all sorts of things that are not about schooling: hunger, health, safety, etc. And what we're really now being confronted with is whether schools are the correct place to be trying to deal with these issues in the absence of failures in the other departments, for example, the Department of Social Development. If schools are expected to be a shield for poor families against every form of social ill, it's not a surprise that poor schools that are understaffed are buckling. So for me, it's really important for us to start saying learning is not happening. We know this is the case. What is going on where we expect schools to step in to sort out issues like food and security and health? And are schools really, is it the Department of Basic Education's responsibility to do these things, or do we also need to be looking to other departments to step up and fulfill their mandate too?
There is, of course, collaboration now during lockdown between basic education and the social development department, but going forward, because these problems are not going to go away when the worst of COVID-19 is over, how do we untangle that knot where even educators have said, not only am I a teacher in the classroom, I am a counselor, I'm a social worker, I'm also sometimes a healthcare professional, because some of these kids arrive sick, often with no guardian to see to their health.
Not only those roles, but we're also the police too. I mean, as a teacher, when we had gang violence in my school, the SAPS would come to us as teachers and say, please help us. This is too much for any single set of professionals to bear. And I think we need to start having some very serious conversations, as you say, about what will enable teachers to teach, and we know that they're not getting around to teaching, and how are these other contradictory roles interfering with teaching and learning. But I do feel for the minister in that the Department of Basic Education has been lumbered with burdens that are far beyond the remit of just schooling and education. And it's, as you say, not just about the COVID moment, but looking beyond to ask, how do we make sure that those who are most vulnerable have access to housing, health and food as basic minimums of human dignity, without relying on schools to be the vector for delivering that.
And I was speaking on, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, to Professor Mary Metcalf about this very question, because we know we've been discussing it for now, the better part of 2 months. And she was saying what needs to happen is we need to step away from a sort of definitive answer to whether schools stay open or close, and perhaps look at saying, look, Gauteng, Johannesburg, that's a hot spot, shut it down there, but keep, for instance, a school open in the Northwest or Northern Cape, where the community spread of the virus is much lower.
So I do think that those of us who've been involved in these conversations have been trying to say very clearly it's not about just open or just close. There are important nuances here. But the problem with using hotspots and information about infection rates to know about whether opening or closing is that we know that our testing strategies are not up to the job. We are under-testing. We have been under-testing for a long time. We're seeing news coming out in the last week or two that our fatality rate is a severe underestimate, and we are rationing the tests to those who are symptomatic. We're rationing the tests to those who are vulnerable. So we could be saying open schools and non-hotspots, actually they are hotspots. We just don't know about it.
And so let's say we go into a closure, right? The unions are saying they want schools closed until the peak has passed. But the projections from the health department are that different provinces will peak at different times. So how do you then work out the timetabling and make sure that no pupil is robbed of adequate instruction by a teacher?
We really need to be thinking very carefully about what supporting distance learning at home means. Now, I'm not for one moment suggesting that's an easy task. I know many of the principals and teachers I've been talking to have said, look, we're not looking to shirk work, as some people would have the public believe. That is not certainly the sentiment from the teachers I've been in touch with. But printed materials, broadcast learning, radio and TV, comprehensively. I know of teachers and principals who are using social distancing measures, going from household to household for their students, checking in, delivering messages. If we are going to open school feeding schemes, for example, do we send home printed materials with students to make sure that they are getting some kind of learning at home? But certainly the crowded conditions and the absolute churn and turmoil as teachers are isolating, as teachers are infected, that is happening in schools right now, you wouldn't believe some of the stories that we're hearing. So we do need to be a little more creative about what it means to be learning under these conditions.
Sara Black, I'm sure we'll be having many more conversations even after the President has spoken tonight. For now, thank you.